Welcome to the deep dive. You sent over some really fascinating material this week, digging into connections between Indian deities and, well, figures from mythologies all over the
It's
world.
quite a collection, isn't it? It
Yeah.
really feels like we're tracing these ancient symbols and archetypes across cultures.
Yeah, like putting together a global puzzle. And the sources you highlighted really show some compelling echoes. It makes you think about how different people understood the divine.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Those fundamental human questions about the world.
Exactly. So based on what you shared, today we're diving straight into Indra, the Vedic God of Thunder, rain, cosmic order, and
That's the one. A major figure.
And your notes kept pointing towards these really intriguing overlaps with figures like Zeus, Thor, even Jupiter. So that feels like a great focus for us.
Definitely.
So our mission, let's say, is to kind of unpack Indra's essence based on these sources and see what these cross-cultural links might tell us.
Sounds good. And a good place to start, based on your materials about the Vedic tradition, is just how incredibly important Indra is.
Right. It was striking how many sources mentioned he's name-checked more than any other deity in the Rig Veda.
More than anyone else. That says a lot.
It really does. And he's not just a god, he's the king of the divas. Now, for listeners maybe less familiar, how do the sources describe the divas?
Well, drawing from the text you provided, the divas are generally understood as the benevolent celestial beings, gods, really,
Yeah.
often tied to nature, maintaining cosmic order.
Okay, the good guys, in a sense.
You could say that, broadly speaking. And Indra's their king, supreme authority.
Got it. And his weapon that comes up again and again, the Vajra.
The Vajra, yes. His thunderbolt. It's iconic, a recurring motif across your readings.
Now, one story that seems absolutely central in the material you sent is Indra battling Vritra. Why is that particular myth so significant?
Well, what the sources consistently highlight is that slaying Vritra isn't just a battle, it's pivotal for restoring cosmic balance.
How so?
Vritra, this serpent demon, is shown as holding back the celestial waters, causing drought, chaos, basically.
Ah!
So Indra's victory, sometimes fueled by Soma, according to some texts you included, is the act that releases those waters. It brings back life, restores order. It's a really powerful narrative about overcoming obstruction.
So, more than just a monster fight, your notes suggested it's a metaphor, too.
Exactly.
Right.
Many of the sources read it on multiple levels. It's the external fight against chaos, sure, but also maybe the internal battles we face against ignorance, negativity, that sort of thing.
The inner Vritra.
Kind of, yeah. That constant tension between order and disorder, inside and out.
And all that imagery, the storm, the thunderbolt itself, the rain that's not accidental, is it? The Vedic symbolism analysis you sent was quite clear on that.
Not at all accidental. As your material points out, these are loaded with meaning. The storm can be upheaval, transformation.
Right.
The thunderbolt is that decisive force breaking through. And the rain, well, that's renewal, fertility, even spiritual nourishment.
It really connects the natural world to deeper spiritual ideas.
That connection is definitely a key theme in the Vedic sources you gathered.
Okay, so let's pivot then. Let's look at ancient Greece, as you suggested. Your notes on Zeus really jumped out with the parallels to Indra.
They're quite striking, aren't they? The
Yeah.
first thing, comparing Indra and Zeus based on your documents, is just how similar their top-line roles are. Rulers of the gods, wielders of the thunderbolt.
King of the Olympians, commands the sky, uses a thunderbolt as his symbol of power, very Indra-like.
Exactly.
And it's fascinating that both had to fight these primordial chaos monsters. You mentioned Zeus fighting Typhon. How does that stack up against Indra and Vritra based on the myths?
Well, the comparative mythology articles you sent draw a clear line. Both Typhon and Vritra represent that primal chaos, a threat to the gods' established order.
Okay.
So Zeus beating Typhon, Indra beating Vritra, they're both these foundational stories. They reinforce order triumphing over chaos. And that theme seems to pop up everywhere, as your research shows.
It's almost uncanny, like these separate cultures somehow arrived at a very similar blueprint for their main sky god. And you mentioned similarities beyond just their powers, too, in personality.
That's right. The character analyses you included suggest parallels there, too. Both are incredibly powerful, obviously, but also maybe a bit temperamental, impulsive sometimes.
Not always perfectly behaved.
Not always strictly black and white, let's
Mhm.
say. That complexity makes them feel perhaps a bit more relatable, reflecting that even divine power has its nuances.
So, thinking about these parallels, Indra and Zeus, what's the bigger archetypal picture here? What do they represent?
If we connect it back, maybe using some of those Jungian ideas from your background reading,
Yeah.
they really seem to embody that archetype of the powerful sky father. Authority, justice, the divine will to keep order. They're the force that steps in to stop things falling apart.
Reflecting that human need for stability, maybe? Protection from chaos?
I think that's a big part of it, yes. A universal desire, it seems.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears again. Norse mythology. Your notes on Thor highlighted some really strong echoes with Indra, especially as protectors.
Absolutely. Thor, with his hammer, Mjolnir, he's consistently shown in your Norse sources as the main defender, protecting gods, protecting humans, usually from giants or other chaotic forces.
So that protector role, it mirrors Indra fighting Vritra to protect the cosmos.
Very strongly, yes. Defending the established order against threats. It's a very similar function.
And Mjolnir, his hammer, like Indra's Vajra, it's more than just a weapon. It's linked to the storm itself.
Indeed. Your research points this out clearly. Both the hammer and the thunderbolt are tied directly to thunder and lightning. They embody the storm's power, but they're also tools to maintain balance, to fight off harmful forces. Different forms, but similar symbolic weight.
You also flag some potential visual links, like maybe associations with the color red, or just immense strength.
Yeah, while interpreting colors can be tricky, the emphasis in the descriptions you found on their sheer strength, their boldness, sometimes that fiery aspect, it does reinforce that shared role. Powerful, active protectors.
It suggests a common idea of what a god who fights monsters should be like, physically almost.
Perhaps, yeah. A deity built for confronting serious threats.
So, seeing these overlaps, Indra, Thor, what does that tell us about sort of fundamental human beliefs or needs, looking across all the material you gathered?
I think it strongly suggests a shared need across cultures to honor, maybe seek favor from powerful gods tied to nature, especially gods who offer protection.
From storms, from monsters, from chaos?
Exactly. This archetype's the strong protector, mighty weapon, fighting chaos that keeps showing up. It points to a universal concern for safety and order in what can feel like a pretty unpredictable world.
And your research didn't stop at Greece and Scandinavia. You found similar figures elsewhere, too.
Yes, if we widen the lens, the parallels continue. You noted the Roman god Jupiter, another sky king, lightning bolts, very much in that mold.
Right, the Roman Zeus, essentially.
Pretty much. And then in Slavic mythology, your sources highlighted Perun, a thunder god, often shown with an axe, which functions a bit like Indra's Vajra, doesn't it? Associated with storms.
An axe, interesting. But still, that thunderstorm connection.
Definitely. And it's not always just about thunder directly. You also drew a line to other kinds of celestial rulers.
Like the Jade Emperor.
Precisely. In Taoism, the Jade Emperor rules heaven. It's a similar idea of supreme celestial authority maintaining harmony in the cosmos. It echoes Indra's position as king over Svarga in the Vedic texts you looked at.
So even if the thunder element isn't fully to center, that core principle of a top god keeping things in order, that resonates.
Exactly. That underlying principle seems to be there.
It really does feel like people all over, different times, different places, looked up at the sky and imagined some powerful figure keeping watch, maintaining balance.
That seems to be a key takeaway from pulling together all these diverse sources. Yes.
Yeah.
This recurring motif of a powerful, often sky-based god, ensuring equilibrium, whether through storms or to sheer authority, it points to a really fundamental way humans have tried to understand the cosmos.
Now, something I found particularly fascinating in your materials was Indra's journey after the Vedic period, specifically in Buddhist traditions.
Ah, yes, his transformation into Śakra, or sometimes Saka, it's a significant shift. As your Buddhist texts explain, his main role changes quite a bit.
How so? He's not the warrior king anymore.
Less of the fierce warrior, yes. He becomes more of a benevolent supporter of the Buddha and a protector of the Dharma, the teachings.
So still powerful, but the focus shifts towards the spiritual, towards supporting Buddhism.
Exactly that. Echoes of the thunder god might remain, but his Buddhist self emphasizes spiritual strength, wisdom, defending righteousness. It's a great example of how these figures evolve, get reinterpreted by new belief systems. Your comparative religion articles really highlighted that adaptability.
And Shakra's influence spread pretty far, didn't it? Your research showed him appearing across Asia.
Oh, absolutely. As your Southeast Asian studies showed, Śakra turns up in Thailand, Indonesia, Japan, across both Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism.
Wow.
It really illustrates how these Vedic ideas traveled and adapted as Buddhism spread through those regions.
And he even shows up in stories like the Jataka tales, offering help.
Yes, according to your sources on Buddhist narratives, Śakra is a frequent character in the Jataka tells those stories about the Buddha's past lives. He often steps in with divine help or demonstrates virtue.
So he becomes this figure embodying compassion and support alongside his power. It shows how flexible that original Indra archetype could be.
Very adaptable, yes.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. Reflecting on all the fascinating material that you shared, what's the main thing we can take away from this deep dive into Indra and his global lookalikes?
I think the core idea, really, is that this archetype, the powerful figure tied to storms, to maintaining order, in all its different cultural clothes, it reflects a really fundamental human way of engaging with nature's power and a deep-seated desire for balance, for protection in the universe.
Indra, in his many forms and echoes, really embodies that enduring archetype.
He really does.
And it feels like the fact that this thunder god figure, Indra, Zeus, Thor, Perun, appears so widely, it must say something about how humans see storms, right? Your psychological anthropology bits touched on this. Destructive, but maybe also cleansing, life-giving.
Precisely. It underlines that ongoing human fascination with nature's raw power and our attempts to make sense of it, to relate to it, often through mythology, through the divine. Storms are scary, but they also bring the rain.
That duality seems key.
Well,
Well, that brings us about to the end of this particular deep dive.
it flew by.
It did. For our next exploration, we're going to dive into Varuna, another Vedic figure, guardian of oceans, morality, and look at his parallels with guys like Poseidon and Neptune, based on some of those oceanic mythology sources you hinted at.
Varuna. That promises to be another fascinating journey looking at how cultures conceptualize the sea's power and cosmic law.
Absolutely. So, a final thought for everyone listening today. As you reflect on our chat about Indra and storms, maybe think about the disruptive forces in your own life, the things that feel chaotic. Perhaps, like this multifaceted thunder god we've explored, those forces might actually hold potential. Potential to clear the path for something new, maybe reveal an inner strength you didn't know was there.
A powerful thought to end on.
Thanks for exploring these deep connections with us today.